Yosenchimanyabo, Inapone, Lourdes Escalante Titeac. Hello, my name is Lourdes Escalante. I'm from the Pasco Yaqui tribe, and I'm the current co-director of programming projects for Alianza Indigenous Sin Fronteras, also known as Indigenous Alliance Without Borders. So, the Alianza was formed to unite indigenous peoples on both sides of the US-Mexico border. And with that in mind, it's my honor and it's my pleasure to present to you all the oral histories that we've recorded of some of our founders who helped form the Alianza.
We welcome all of you to hear these histories from really respected Indigenous rights elders who have been in the front lines of Indigenous rights on these lands, this powerful land of the Atam and also the Yoeme, but when we go into Mexico, the Atam and the Yoeme also, and the dozens of other nations that are indigenous peoples in the state of Sonora. And these are early founders of the Alianza. They were at the first meeting when we gathered in 1997, when the late Jose Matus and these elders organized a group of indigenous elders and activists, and also some environmental and migrant rights activists to a meeting to discuss coming together, and there we did it on Atam land. We're hosted by the Atam, and so for our 25th anniversary, we asked that they come together to discuss what they remembered, and also indigenous rights, and what to think about as we are in these times, especially for our young people. And so we welcome the elder Joe Garcia and Maria Garcia and the elder David Garcia. We have so much respect for the three of you, and thank you so much for being here.
We had just moved the restaurant from where we were on Scott Avenue to where we was on 4th Avenue. And I had, I don't exactly remember how I met Jose, but I think at that time he was working with those Yaquis that were in Morena. I'm not sure, I can't really make sure. But anyway, he showed up at the restaurant on 4th Avenue one day and asked to sit down with me and to talk about things that were happening then with various groups of Autumn here and in Mexico. And I remember that we started talking about maybe a combination of indigenous group coming together to work, because the idea came from, I got involved with the Autumn in Mexico back in '88, I think. And at that time, there was a group of Yaquis that were helping them out in San Francisco, Sonora, with the October 4th festivals. So I got to talk with them, and we got to talking about the different things that were happening here with Autumn in Mexico, and then them as an indigenous group. And in 90, we started going to the Yaqui village in Sonora, and I got to meet some of the leaders that have not gone on, and we were talking about politics and how we were not getting the aid that we were asking for. And at that time, Lorenzo Garcia was part of the Ayaki in Vicam, I think. I think it was in Vicam that he was. anyway, we started talking about maybe forming a group of the 8 tribes that were in Mexico and start working together as a group to push our problems to the Mexican government. And that idea kind of came up during the meeting that I had with Jose Matus. And he started, agreeing that maybe they had the autumn in Mexico, or the 8 tribes in Sonora had the right idea in coming together to form a group where all the tribes would be as one. And this was the idea that we finally settled on with the problems here. And we started having meetings in. At that time, we had a small restaurant on 6th Avenue. We had a meeting there with the various people discussing the new idea of forming a larger group to work together. And then we had 2 more meetings in San Javier with people from Vicam, from different villages in Mexico, Sonora. And we talked about maybe working together across borders to give us a little bit more push with what we were doing in or would be doing here with the tribes here. And I don't exactly know how long we had that meeting, our meetings, to finally settle on a name for the Alliance. And we chose the Alliance because it was, just more than one group that were coming together to work. So in the last meeting we had was before we decided on the name, was in San Javier district. And there was I remember Bruce Black, Marco Coleman, Floyd Flores. I'm not Floyd.
Tony
Encinas, Mike Flores, the 2 ladies from Sonora. There's altogether, so maybe about 17 or 20 people. I'm not sure, but there's Brenda Norwell was part of one of the group. And then we had Marco Cohen as sort of like a speaker or a lawyer that would speak on our behalf at various meetings that we were planning on. So it started out pretty good. I mean, everybody liked the idea of a group of people or group working together. And at that meeting, we started throwing out various names that we would call that organization. And finally, we chose the Alliance Without Borders.
Okay, mantam iushat masjuk tojo mantam shai ushat matamas ma mishon na kamo tamame south to son matai chuk kamo hapi uju. Alianza has gone through so many changes. In the beginning, it was local issues, because we were also just as much concerned about what was happening to our Autumn people in terms of the brutality, the violence that the South Tucson Police Department was doing with mainly the Autumn people, because at that time, when an Autumn person would get arrested, their job was to go through the alleys and pick up the trash throughout the whole South Tucson community. And so they were used as It was just a commodity. I never really heard too much about the Yaquis when they were picked up for whatever reason, but I'm assuming that they probably also had to do manual labor right there in South Tucson. And so that was the beginning of organizing among the O'odham people. And then as a result of that, more discussions took place between Jose and others. But there was kind of a mistrust on the part of others who had different ideas, those who didn't live in the community, which created problems. So that's why there were some O'odham people that kind of resented the fact that others that were becoming with good intentions kind of frowned upon that. And so some of these O'odham people chose not to participate in that. And I'm most likely that was probably the same thing with the Yaqui community, even though we knew each other. But it was the elders on the O'odham side who I think had a lot to do with their stories that they would tell or talk about in some of these meetings that I attended. But they were very adamant about wanting to gain their trust in others, because they didn't trust anybody really. And but that's the extent of how I kind of remember back then.
Yo muy personalmente me sentía muy feliz con gente que yo sentía que era gente muy bonita y muy importante junta, sin envidias. Fue una experiencia bastante bonita para mí y la sigo teniendo, porque no todo ha sido perdido. Para tener una unidad de gente es muy difícil por aquello de que no se entiende, pero aquí sí había buena armonía. Y quisiera añadir que se volviera a difundir con todas las tribus que existen aquí en Arizona y en Sonora. Ya no estamos hablando de México entero, pero de menos Sonora.
I do know, which I did try to do, was try to get the Pasco Yaqui tribal leaders involved, as well as the tribal leaders from the Tohono Commission, because it was important mostly for Jose, and it goes back to I just didn't see the support there, and so I attempted to at least try to talk to some of the Pasco Yaqui tribal leaders back then, because I would see them at various places in my travels when I was sitting on the tribal council, because we were all talking about border issues, and that's what we were working on as well.